Welcome to the Grand Prix Project podcast.
Welcome once again. This is the Grand Prix Project podcast. This is a F1 episode reviewing the
Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
Okay, which is in
I'm
Italy.
sure which is in Italy. Yeah,
the Italian.
I'm sure that's how that's how they pronounce it. Officially, the Italian Grand Prix will be Monza. Yeah,
Right,
Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Yeah.
Okay, good. Tongue twisted here, but we got it. Piastri Stomps don't have a pole. Lando struggles to fourth. Like, hey, what's going on in what's the dynamics? What's going on with do you see Piastri as the guy in the McLaren team now?
No, I don't think so. I still think it's relatively close between the two of them, and I think where Lando's problem lies is not race pace. It's his one lap qualifying. That seems to be the problem that he needs to work on, because once he gets into the race, he's shown that he has the pace to either match or even beat Piastri. So I don't think that's the case of saying Piastri is the man right now. Is he in a good vein of form? Absolutely. And based on that, people would want to say, yeah, he's the man. But I still think it's too early. It's 7 races out of 24? So we have another 17 races to go. I still think, it's too early to make that call. But we can agree that in terms of who's in the best form right now, it's Oscar. Because, go back to our last episode from, what was the last race? Miami, where I mentioned, or it was born before that, where I mentioned that what Landon needs is he just needs a clean weekend. And I think if he can put a clean weekend together, that will kind of like help boost his confidence or whatever it is again. But right now, his struggles is definitely in qualifying. Because
the issue with that, right? Needing a clean weekend. We've been saying that for a couple of races now, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, we're a quarter of the season, just over a quarter, as we just mentioned. There's Grand Prix in the season. So I could see that being said, just based on what I've seen, right? I could see that being said until the halfway point, and all of a sudden we're saying that at the 3/4 way point. And
no, I don't think we'll say that up to that point. But the thing that's saving Lando right now is, even with his poor qualifying form, the gap to his teammate is not unsurmountable. It's not something that he cannot claw back within maybe 2 or 3 races.
Considering he figures out.
Yeah. So he's still winning. He's still in the fight. He's not dropped out. He's not lost or anything like that. He's still consistently. I mean, has he missed the podium in any races this year? I don't believe. Where did he miss the podium? Was it Jeddah? Because Charles finished on the podium in Jeddah. Yeah. No, it wasn't. No, Max didn't finish on the podium in Jeddah. God, I need to remember. But either way, Lando is still consistently. He's putting the McLaren on the podium, which is good. So if his teammate is winning the races and he's on the podium, it lessens the points gap to some extent.
But consistently over the season, you lose a championship.
Yes, which is why he's gonna have to regain his form in qualifying. And if he fixes that, like I said, in the race, he's still relatively quick in the race. Consistent pace throughout every single race so far. He just hasn't been able to put together. Again, his cleanest weekend was Australia. He had no issues in Australia. Qualified on pole, drove a clean race, and you felt like he was going to build on that, and then everything started to fall apart in China.
So let me ask you this, right? We already know that one of the hardest issues to fix, because he's in a good car, as we already know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a good car that's fast, or for any car, as a matter of fact, the hardest thing to overcome, if you got an issue, is that one lap pace.
I
Yeah,
disagree. I disagree with that. Why? I disagree with that because, again, the issue he could be having over the one lap, it could be tire related, it could be a balance issue or something. These are things that can be fixed. It's not like he doesn't have one lap pace. He has the one lap pace. He just needs to get the car on that one lap. Because if you look at his qualifying, every single session he's fine up until the final runs in Q3.
Are we feeling? So basically the same thing that Lewis went through at Mercedes. Yeah, a lot of time he went through, and he said when it comes down to it, the car is just a totally different.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So probably his final 2 years at Mercedes.
Yeah, his final 2 years I'm talking about.
Yeah, that happened.
The reason why I alluded to the fact that the one lap thing is probably more difficult to fix. I get it. You're saying he's thereabout. He's qualifying top 4. It's not terrible, but it's just like what you mentioned. You said it that his issue is qualifying, right? So the reason why I said qualifying is probably one of the most difficult to fix, whatever may be the cause, is that we've seen it. We've seen where it's like drivers may struggle in qualifying and then they're just rapid in the race.
Well, but in that case, it depends on the car in question, because if you have a good car is a good car, qualifying or in the race. You expect, which is McLaren is. So you expect him to, be good in qualifying. So whatever the issue is he's having, it could be a simple case of, maybe just the pressure of having Oscar, knowing Oscar is there, knowing that he has to be absolutely perfect. Because if he's not, he's going to get out qualified by either Max, Oscar, or even George. And maybe that pressure, that in itself is playing in the back of his mind. I don't know. I'm just assuming here. But whatever the issue is, it's just, that's the only thing he needs to clean up. And he still has a lot of time. He's only 13 points behind in the championship. He still has a lot of time available. And what we do know, we've seen in Formula 1, there's going to be a bad patch somewhere for Oscar. Oscar's going to have his moments where, he's having difficulties as well. The question now is, how does Oscar deal with these moments? So Lando just needs to just kind of take a deep breath, and if in some ways kind of retrace his step, to what he did well in Australia, and just try and replicate that. Because, like I said, the pace is there in him. So, if he gets that fine, if he gets that sorted, then he'll be all right.
Yeah, man.
Be all right, Biscuit.
Yeah, I just think whatever it is, right? So he had one clean weekend, and then he's at 6 that is not so great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a lot of races.
Yeah, and again, like I said, you'd assume within those 6 races, Oscar's won 4, right? Yeah. You'd have thought that he'd have had a much bigger gap. He doesn't. Oscar's won the last prior to yesterday, won the last 4 races.
Oh, last 4. No, last 3.
Last 4.
He did 3 in a row. Was it 3 in a row that he did? Yeah,
he won.
That's when he broke the record.
He won Jeddah after Max won in Japan. What was after Japan? God, let me just check, because I can't remember all of this stuff.
He did 3 in a row because he was the first driver since since
Senna?
Hakkinen. No, since Hakkinen.
Hakkinen. So he won Bahrain. Yeah, he won Bahrain, Jeddah, and Miami.
Yeah.
He also won Australia, China. So those are his 4 wins.
Yeah.
You'd have thought, he'd have built up a bigger lead. So whilst it looks daunting for Lando, it's still pretty much not as bad as how it could have been for him, because the points gap is not huge. It's only 13 points. You're talking about that's him winning the next 2 races and Oscar finishing 3rd in those 2 races. That's 20 points he's gained over Oscar, immediately 7 points ahead of him again. So I think it becomes a worry. Is it a worry now? Yes. To what extent? Maybe 20%. It becomes a more bigger percentage if we get to the halfway point of the season.
That's what I was.
And it's the same thing happening, and he's not winning races, and Oscar is winning races. Then you pretty much know, you're not.
Gonna say you're not halfway mark, not figuring this out. Right.
Yeah.
His little niggling issues are. He's gonna start looking at.
And when you consider that the Red Bull is now starting to look a much better package.
Actually, we'll get to that because that's one of the things that we have that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Right. That's one of the things that we need to discuss.
So the qualifying was brilliant from Oscar because again he delivered when it matters, and we all thought Max was going to steal it, and what we realized with the circuit as well, because they probably brought the softest compound tires in the range. Was it C4, 5, and 6, which are the 3 softest compounds, right? And we saw that there was a mixed. All the cars in the top 10 set their times on different tires.
Yeah.
Well, was it 3 out of the 7 cars set the times on different tires?
Mm-hmm.
The Mercedes, and the 2 Aston Martins did use mediums in Q3, and George on mediums out-qualified Lando. Which, when you saw Lando's lap, when Piastri was up a 10th and a half at the end of sector 2, Lando was almost 3/10 down, and I was like, it's not coming together. And then, you thought, okay, he had secured a 3rd position because you didn't really think George was going to out-qualify him on the medium tires, and boom, up pops George, and he's off he's still on the 2nd row, but he's made his job a bit more difficult because, he's behind the Mercedes, where naturally he'd want to probably be behind Max on the grid or something like that, which gives him a better chance. But hats off to Oscar, did his thing again, delivered another excellent pole. The 2 Aston Martins had some upgrades this over the weekend. I heard it was a large package. Lance and they qualified. Where they qualified? Let me tell you where they qualified. They qualified 5th and 8th. Alonso in 5th. Stroll in 8th again with that's basically sandwiched the 2 Williams of Sainz and Albon. Hadjar again in the Q3, P9, and Gasly P10. The 2 Ferraris, boy, I genuinely don't know what's going on there when it comes to their qualifying, because again we've seen what happened in Miami where they set the best times they set the time on used tires, then went out on brand new tires, and there was no improvement on the brand new tires. So what's going on there? They've got it, because it's like there seems to, but we'll discuss the whole Ferrari thing later on because I've got questions.
All right, then so we started out on the Piastri thing. I said shout out to Piastri. Keep doing this thing. Doing a lot of consistency, and growth actually. In everything, in his driving, he's doing a great job. Max. So Max goes on to win his 2nd race of the season, right? After that move That move was brilliant.
After what we know is basically a Max move.
Yeah.
Max pretty much kind of like, look, he knew he had to lead the first lap because that his race depended on that. I think if he hadn't done that, he would have probably struggled to pass the McLaren. Even though if you look on his pace, I think the Red Bull were genuinely quicker than the McLaren this weekend in the race stream. It just looked. It doesn't. I mean, there was once after, was it like 5, 6, 7 laps, and you saw the leader over 1.5 seconds. I thought to myself, well, okay, maybe the McLaren are just taking the time, bringing the tires in slowly, and know they're going to start to chip away at the time. But it never transpired, and Max didn't look like he was ever going to be put under pressure by either McLaren. He just like,
that, when I'm looking at it, the reason why I beg to differ on that, right? Unless you got like a RB19, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas no matter what is behind, it's just going to drive up and signal, maneuver, and go.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this time, it's like your best get if you're out in front, even on McLaren, right? And if the Red Bull gets out in front of you, it could change everything about that race, right? And it could look, as you say, probably the Red Bull, based on what happened, the Red Bull looks faster to you. And if Piastri, if Max didn't make that move, all of a sudden the McLaren stretches its legs up the road, leave the Red Bull. See, you know what we're talking about? Like when it comes on, a lot of time his track position is king, right? And
yeah, which is why I said it was important for Max to lead the race.
Yeah, because I think if Oscar had maintained first, I think he would have galloped.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's why I said it was important for Max to lead the race. That's why he went for that move. He knew how important it was to lead the race, because if he found himself behind Oscar, he pretty much knew it was going to be a struggle to pass the McLaren.
No, I was referring to when you said you think the Red Bull would pick a car.
Yeah, I think, and this is why I say that, because when Oscar pitted, right, and Lando moved up into second place after he had passed George, and he moved up into second. By the way, the move on Lando put on George was a nice move where he did it. So you know,
like he's listening.
He's starting. Yeah, he heard the criticism, and now he's starting to get a bit ballsy. And kudos to him. Kudos to him for doing that. But when Oscar got up behind Max, he was about 9 seconds, I believe it was. And you thought, okay, let's see the McLaren's pace now. Let's see them unleash that pace and see how quickly Lando can eat into that time. He didn't. The gap remained relatively around the same 9-second mark. He didn't have any pace to claw back from Max. And Max, at that point in time, you didn't think Max was pushing his tires that hard.
So
you felt like he was managing his pace. So you could...
Huh? You don't think Lando used up tires behind George?
Not to the extent that it would... Because the McLaren is extremely good on its tires. So it's not to the extent that it would cost them that much performance. Because we've seen it before. If you look at Miami, how much tire did he use up to get past Max? But once he got past Max, he drove away from him. And at the same time, he was eating into Oscar's gap. So that wasn't the case this weekend. I just feel like on pure race pit, this weekend, the Red Bull was probably the quicker car. Definitely.
So to say that, right? So are you also saying that he probably could have caught Piastri on the road and beat him on race pace?
Who?
Max.
That's what I'm saying. All right, this might contradict my original point, but when you're following, it's more difficult. Because because if the cars are evenly matched pace-wise, right? The delta you would need to overtake, I believe what Ant was saying, it was something like maybe 7/10 to a second per lap in delta. You would need to overtake around that track because you saw what happened with the DRS straight. So, and the McLaren likes clean here. If the McLaren is out in front, it's pretty much lethal. So, which is why I go back to my original point that Max knew his race relied on him leading the first lap. And and that's why he went hell for leather. It's either win or bust. You know what I mean? What's that? Murray Walker used to say, you can't win a race at the first corner, but you can lose it, which I said that's not really true because you can win it at the first corner as well. And that's exactly what Max did. He won the race at the first corner. And, and hats off to him.
Yeah.
Because, he's up for this championship fight. And the McLaren guys are going to have to realize that, we're up against a 4-time champion. We're up against a guy, basically, where his entire team is going to be pushing behind him. They're not concerned about the Constructors' Championship anymore. So Yuki's basically kind of like, it is what it is. He's just there. They don't care about that. They want the Drivers' Championship. And they're going to do everything in their power to give Max the best opportunity possible because they had an upgrade package this weekend as well. You know what I mean? So, and that upgrade package looks like it brought the car back into a favorable position for Max. Because what you notice is in practice sessions, there seem to be nowhere. But by qualifying, FP3 qualifying, they've managed to fine-tune it and get it to where they needed to, and now it starts to work. So,
I'm glad that
Max
you went there because yesterday in the spaces I did ask the question, right?
What's that?
Is McLaren, because as we said, it's safe to say that McLaren should have won 6 out of 7, or McLaren should have been 7 out of 7.
Yeah, you could say that. But then again, the brilliance of Max is there. So it was never going to be an easy thing for them to deliver. But yeah, you could say they should have won all 7 races.
Because the reason why I'm asking that, from what I'm seeing, I think McLaren is lingering around to get Red Bull, to get Max back in the game.
Again, but here's the problem with that. Lingering around in what sense? Because it's not like they have 2 competitive drivers. So it's very likely that they were going to take points off each other.
Yeah.
So the only way, if one driver was winning, then majority of the points would be going to that driver. So then Max would have a bigger problem to deal with. But the fact that both drivers are competitive.
I meant strategically, right? The way I see it, McLaren should have been way more aggressive. In the way I see it, the way the McLarens are faster, McLarens are, and it's just Max.
Mm-hmm.
If Max is leading a race and they're second and third, they have to be aggressive in strategy to either use one of the cars to hold Max at some point. They have to do something. They can't just do what Max is doing because they're leading the championship. They don't need to say pull the trigger like yesterday. Yesterday, I think they got that whole strategy from that first stop for Piastri. I think it was a wrong call.
Yeah, it was definitely the wrong decision to make because once the gap to Max was what, 2.5 seconds. Yeah. So as long as it's within that window, and if Max isn't pulling away at rate of knots, then you go as long as you possibly can because even then they're still quicker than everybody else behind them. Exactly. And if Piastri had just carried on, we don't know. Maybe, we could then see a sudden change in performance, and he started to eat back into that gap. But the fact that they pitted him so early, pretty much gave Red Bull a free pass because Lando was already too far behind. So combined, Lando was about what? Say what? 10 seconds behind Max. The moment you move Piastri out the way, it was easy picking for Red Bull, and especially when you consider that they pitted Piastri back out into traffic. Yeah, that's the part that didn't really make any sense, because I tell you when he pitted, he came back out. He pitted from second on the end of lap 13, right? When he came back out on lap 14, he came back out in 12th. In 12th position, he came back out in 12th position, just ahead of Charles, Russell, and Sainz, and Alonso, and Gasly, and so on. So you pretty much pitted him in traffic, where now he's gonna have to use up his tires to get through traffic, and you have Max just going leisurely at a pace, just doing the same amount of laps, which now for him creates a tire offset. So when he pits, so even if Piastri was ever to like fall within its pit window or surpass him in terms of the time, because I think the pit last time was something like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And
at one point, the gap, when Piastri finally made his way through past Lewis, I think Lewis was the last person he passed. Let me see where he went up to. He passed
at the time.
Yeah, he passed Lewis. He passed Lewis on lap 26, 27 he passed Antonelli, and 28 he passed Hajar, right?
Yeah.
So by the time he got up to those positions, he's talking about he had to pass the likes of Tsunoda. He spent 3 laps behind Tsunoda. Then he had to pass then he was behind Beerman, Colapinto. I think he spent pass those guys really quick. So
after that Tsunoda, that 3 laps is a bit. He took once he caught him, he passed him. He didn't.
Yeah, he wasn't directly behind him, but he had to close that gap down.
But once
it took him basically 3 laps to close one, because he came back out on lap 14. So 15, 16, 17. So it took him 3 laps, and then he passed him on lap 18. Right. But the point is, he used up a lot of his tires getting through to that position. So once he got back up into where did he got up to? He got up to P4 on lap 28 before the VSC came up, and that's when Lando pitted, and he jumped him. He had already ran through his tires. So the likelihood is it would have been a struggle for him to get to the end of the race on those tires. So was the plan then to pit him a second time? Because looking at what Red Bull were doing, Max was never going to do a 2-stop.
Yeah.
So they need to explain the logic behind saying pitting Oscar that early when all they had to do was just mirror what Max was doing.
Yeah,
that's all they had to do. Because it was only Piastri now who could actually beat Max, because Lando was too far behind. Lando was never going to close that 9-second gap to Max to win the race. So Piastri was your only bet, but you moved him out of the way. I think Max pitted on lap. Max pitted under the VSC, I believe. Yeah, Max pitted on lap 29 or 20 or 30, I believe it was, under the VSC. And when you consider that Piastri pitted on end of lap 13, so there's basically 15 lap tire offset. So even if the VSC hadn't come out at that point in time, Max already had a pit stop over Piastri.
Yeah, and the fact that, and this is why when it happened, I'm like, are they missing a trick here? What are they doing? Because they know, the old paddock knows, the old F1 sphere knows that their car is the best with tire management, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, he's 2 points, probably just backing off not to. Just follow Max. Like, you have no reason to pit Piastri before Max in that situation. Because if you go back to when Red Bull was winning,
Mm-hmm.
and Max they just go long because
because
we're the
when
one
you
with
have the
advantage.
fastest car,
Yeah,
when you have the
I was
fastest
following
car,
you.
there's no such thing as a bad strategy when you have the fastest car. There's no strategy that you can look at and say that's a terrible one if you have the fastest car on the grid. And whilst they were pretty much an equal match for each other this weekend, and I still somewhat say Red Bull had the slight advantage, that was a dumb decision from them to make. It shouldn't.
McLaren
And again,
that was a bad strategy. It was a very fast car.
Yeah, and it showed the same thing we've talked about before, that McLaren aren't used to winning. They've not won since, if you go championship, they haven't won. We all know they haven't won the championships. They didn't win a champion prior to last. They didn't win a championship since 2008. So they've probably forgotten how to win, right? And it shows up in the decision they make. Even Jacques Villeneuve said it post-race that he doesn't understand what they did. And again, it shows that in critical moments, they're still making silly decisions, whereby Red Bull, they know what to do at the right point in time.
And you had mentioned it yesterday in the spaces, and I'm still going to stick to my thoughts on that, right? Whilst they haven't won a championship prior to last year, since 2008, right? Well, drivers' champion, because they won a drivers' championship 2008, right? I'm still looking at yesterday. It wasn't one of those ones where you had to really. It wasn't really a lot of data number crunching type of situation where like you're like this, like it was just a simple, straightforward. We're leading the championship. We've got a great car. We're gonna follow him as long as Oscar doesn't come on the radio and say my tires are falling off a cliff. You speak to your driver, Oscar, are you feeling in this situation? Yeah, my tires are good. I think I still got some pace. Okay, follow him. If he pits, you go one ahead, right? We're not gonna pit before them. Right? Or worst case scenario, if he pits, you follow him into the pits. Let's see if they mess up on a pit stop and we jump them there. But not pitting him before was never the right thing to do.
But I just thought about it. Did they react to Charles and George? Is that the reason why they pit him? Because if you look, when they pit him, if I'm not again, let me just check the lap by lap thing. He came back out. When he came back out on lap 14, he came back out ahead of Charles and George. And remember when Charles pitted first. Charles pitted on at the end of lap 9, and Charles was in P9 when he pitted. Mm-hmm. So did they react? Did they see the lap times that Charles was doing or reacted to that? Because if that's the case, that's even dumber than.
It doesn't matter what Lewis, Charles. It doesn't matter.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Red Bull, you focus on Max Verstappen, even if whatever Charles or George did and it won them the race. As long as you're not beaten by that Red Bull, that's what your focus should be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just
focus on teams that are not even a championship and lose the championship.
Yeah, and that's what Red Bull's not going to do. Red Bull wouldn't have made that mistake.
Yeah, if no matter what, if the strategy means that at the end I finish 9th and Max finishes 10th, I'm okay with that. As long as you're not beaten by him, right? Yeah. You can't be focusing on these other teams, right? And it may mean that to watch what's going on and to play this game, you may have to put yourself in a situation where it's like another team may win the race. Focus on beating Max in the Red Bull.
Yeah, because Max's sole focus is to beat them. Yeah. Max doesn't care about Ferrari or Williams or Mercedes.
No.
Max's only goal is, I need to beat the two McLarens. That's all. If I do that, I win the championship.
Exactly.
Because I know I have the pace to beat the Mercedes and the Ferrari and everybody else. These are the guys I need to focus on.
And it's just like, as I said, even if it means I finish third and they finish fourth and fifth, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Max is okay.
Yeah, because you're increasing. You're increasing your points over them.
And that's the type of mentality McLaren need to have. Don't worry about who pitted and what lap time they're doing. Focus on the guy that you're in a championship with. So yesterday was a big old cock up.
Yeah, I just thought about it because when he came out, he wasn't that far ahead of Charles when he came out. So was it a case of they looked at Charles and thought, yeah, if we don't pit him now, Charles is going to jump us. But I'm thinking, if you had carried on, you probably would have opened up that gap. You pit him back out into traffic where he's going to get delayed, use tires to get past all of that traffic, get delayed. And that in that moment, Max's advantage grows because Red Bull literally, once they saw where he was going to come back out, they pretty much know, we've got this race won now. There's no Max can, because he's going to have loose time coming through the traffic.
Yeah.
If it was a case of where he pitted and he came back out in clean air, no one in front of him, where he could exploit the pace of the McLaren, then Red Bull would have pitted Max. But that wasn't the case. And lap 14 was way too early in the race to do that either way. So strategically, they definitely made a mistake. And not only that, you then look at the final safety car, right? Oscar was on hard tires that were something like 20 laps, because he pitted again under the second virtual safety car that came, the first virtual safety car that came out.
17 laps old tire was on.
Yeah, so he pitted on, I think he pitted under the VSC, which came on lap 29 or 30, or whichever one it came on, right? And then, so that would have been his second stop. So that would have been his second stop for another set of hard tires. So he had no more tires available to him, right? Lando had a fresh set of hard tires. Now, you'd have thought to yourself, okay, who has the best chance of trying to win this race from Max? Obviously, it's going to be Lando.
Yeah.
So once the race started, it was a case of they should have probably got on the horn to Oscar and like, once they cleared, I'd just say, the first lap or half a lap, Oscar, let Lando through. Let him through. Let him chase after Max and see, because he was going to pass, Lando was going to pass him eventually. Lando was going to pass him because he didn't have the tires, and fresh tires and the pace of that McLaren means he was pretty much guaranteed P2.
It wouldn't be like you lost it wouldn't be like you gave up a podium to Lando.
Exactly.
You're going to lose
exactly. Because you were going to lose it anyway. But he spent 3 laps behind trying to pass Oscar. And within that 3 laps, Max drove off. So you're like, come on, man, guys, what are you doing? And again, hold on, and I think this is what Jacques Villeneuve said in his post race comments. It's like, they're scared of pulling the trigger and offending Oscar. Like, in that situation, you gave Red Bull a win. You made the mistake already by pitting Oscar too early. And now you're making it easier for them by saying, letting the two of them fight for what? For TV?
And even in that situation, I'm sure Oscar would understand that I was going to lose the position.
But Oscar knew he was going to lose the position. Everybody watching the race knew he was going to lose that position.
And the crazy that Jacques Villeneuve said that, you remember in the spaces what I said? I said, Zach Brown is going to let them race until he let them race out of a championship win.
Exactly.
And you know me, I'm always the one that likes the pure racing. We always have this conversation, right? Hey man, I like pure racing. But in a situation like this, when you have won, apart from last year, you haven't won the Drivers' Championship since Lewis Hamilton, right? Don't let them race you out of a driver's title, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Let them beat you. Let them have to work for it.
At this point, it has to make sense. And in this scenario, it made sense to, as you say, jump on the radio and be like, hey, Oscar, move over.
Move out the way.
Because you're going to lose the position. It's pointless having Lando race for a position that he's gonna gain, even if it took him 3 laps. Max just canted up the road.
But because by the time Lando got past Oscar, Max was like 5 seconds up the road, and you're like, that's 3 laps you wasted. That you could have just said, move out the way, Oscar. Let go on the radio behind the safety car and say, Oscar, let Lando pass as quickly as possible.
Put it this way, McLaren displayed a classic case of stepping on your own tail yesterday.
Yep. I think they gave Red Bull that win. Because this is why I said
it's funny you said it, because I was going to ask you, the first thing I was going to ask you when we started the pod, when we got to this topic, was, did Red Bull win that race, or did McLaren basically effed it up?
McLaren messed it up, but that's after Piastri messed it up.
Yeah.
Because Piastri, that move, Max should have never passed him on the outside. Piastri basically fell into the trap Lando fell into last year at Monza. He thought because he got to the corner first, it was done. He got to the braking zone of the corner first. It was done. He had the corner. Forgetting who he's racing against. Because if you watch the start, right? George got a better start than Max.
Yeah.
And he then got the tour from Oscar. Because if you saw the onboard, you could see Oscar, he was looking left, he was looking right, and he was looking where Max was. And what he did was, the last time he looked to his left. Didn't look back to his right to see where Max was. Because he felt like, okay, I've pulled away from Max now, I have the corner. So when he went into that corner, I think he was surprised to see Max just steam up on the outside of him. So he didn't do well going into that corner. And again, I'm not really the biggest Jacques Villeneuve fan, because he's a bit wishy-washy at times with his comments. But he was right. He said there was no way Max should have come out of that corner leading the race.
Yeah, and not only that, Oscar also focused on the wrong car, right? Because the start that George got, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where my issue comes in. And I'm probably going to chalk it up to inexperience, right? Because if there was going to be a car that should have led that wasn't Oscar, it should have been
George. Yeah.
Oscar should have do everything that he can to keep Max, box him in, and let George go up the inside and know that I can catch you. I know I've got a way faster car than yours. So
exactly.
And this is my issue, and this is where McLaren got to be careful with their drivers and the strategy that they pull, because they're going to have to pick their battles correctly. Because guess what? Come checkered flag, Abu Dhabi, we might see a Red Bull driver as champion.
We might see it before Abu Dhabi, because we know the battles Red Bull are going to pick. They only have one driver. They don't. Again, this came out and they said it. Their focus is to win the drivers' championship. There's no way they can win the constructors. They're too far behind. And with Max already scoring 99.9% of the points already, that's beyond them. So their focus is the driver. So we know what their fight is going to be. And everything is going to go into beat those two McLarens.
And McLaren is going to have to batten down. And there's probably going to come a point in the season where they're going to have to sacrifice a driver.
They should have sacrificed one yesterday.
Right? That's it. Because if they're not thinking that, bro, they have no business racing, bro. Like, look, you know, if they're not if they're not going in these meetings and are going through this championship thing, it's gonna become a point where we're gonna have to look at the points and see, say for instance, Lando is in the lead, Piastri is in second, but the points difference between Max isn't that great between Piastri, if he's leading the championship at said point, and be like, hey Lando, we need this 5. You got to pull over, bird. You got to pull over. You got to.
It's similar to Lewis, and if you go back to 2018, when Lewis finally, when he won in Germany, I believe the next race was Sochi in Russia, and Bottas should have. And if we're being honest, A lot of people don't want to be honest about that. Bottas should have won the Russian Grand Prix in 2008. No, it was
2018. You mean
2018? So it was after Singapore. So they had Russia, right? And it was close in the championship between Lewis and Seb. Bottas should have won that race, if we're being honest. But Mercedes told Bottas, yo, we need those. And at that point, I believe Lewis had taken the lead in the championship, but it wasn't a big points gap. Yeah, so they pretty much said to Bottas, yo, we need those extra points, because Lewis was in second, and I believe Seb was in third at the time. So the points gain difference would have been what? Second gets 18, third gets 15. So it would have been 3 points. So they said to Bottas, yo, move out the way, let Lewis through. Lewis won the race. It was a net gain of what? 7 points. So rather than gaining 3 points over Seb, he gained 10 points because they told Bottas. And at that point, Bottas wasn't really in the championship, but the same logic will apply to McLaren, that if it gets to a stage in the season with whoever is leading the championship, if that person is in front of you, you're going to have to tell them to move over, because why would you want to take points off the guy that's more likely going to win in the championship?
Yeah.
When the guy that's chasing you is literally right behind him. You want to build a gap to him. You want to get the most points you can get. So if you see a situation where you can get from gaining 3 points to gaining 10, you're gonna have to take it.
Yep.
Gaining an extra 7 to make it 10, you're gonna have to tell somebody move over. But I remember last year someone was saying to me that Oscar's contract basically says he's not a number 2 driver or whatever it is. And I'm thinking, why would Red Bull why would McLaren even sign such a contract, etc. But
why would they sign what type of contract?
Saying Oscar is not a number 2 driver, like, okay. And again, it probably goes back to the Webber thing, because Webber is his manager. But I'm kind of going off track here. But the point is,
let's keep it a buck. No one really knows what these guys' contracts are.
Yeah. But at some point, McLaren is going, like you said, at some point they're going to get to a stage where they're going to have to make a decision, and somebody's going to have to end up losing the championship anyway.
Bridesmaid at some point of the season.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen if not? You're going to take points off each other, and a Red Bull is going to win the championship.
It's going to end up similar to 2007. That's what's going to end up possibly end up like. You have the fastest car right now, and it's very likely come the end of the year, neither your driver wins the championship, and then you're going to be like, what happened? And then you're going to be looking at weekends like this, like dumb decisions like that cost you the championship.
So message to Zach Brown: don't let them race yourself out of a driver's championship this year, bro.
Exactly.
Y'all need to get it right. Yeah, we love racing as fans, but we're also not stupid, right? There's a lot at stake when it comes down to racing, especially F1 racing. So don't let them race yourself out of a driver's title. That's all I'm going to say on that.
McLaren made a lot of mistakes yesterday. First one that really messed them up was Oscar. Should have never lost that position, because he went into that corner far enough ahead of Max. That should have never happened. Then 2, that early pit stop for him, you couldn't see the logic behind it, because you're talking about he would have needed to do, 59 laps on the hard tires, and again it's on the softer side of the compound, so we don't know if it would have gone the distance. And Max did 20 odd laps on the medium, so why did you pit him?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
And then to compound it, you have the guy who on brand new tires against the guy who's on 20 lap old tires, fighting for 3 laps, whilst the guy you want to try and win the race from drives off into the distance. Like, come on. Sometimes I get the idea about wanting them to fight, but sometimes you have to use common sense and
So we could move on
throw
from
that out the window.
right? Huh? So we could just to close out this topic. It's like what we said, right? McLaren is like playing poker, right? What they did yesterday was take their whole hand and turn it over and show it to Red Bull.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because once you did that, you told Red Bull, yeah, we're two-stopping from here.
Yeah, because that's what it looked like they were going to do with Oscar. It was going to...
So even the thing is, even if Red Bull was planning to two-stop Max, once they saw that went through the window.
Yeah, but the thing is, Red Bull were never planning on two-stopping Max. It was never not just...
Even if that was a thing, what McLaren did yesterday was show their hand, and once they saw that, hey, that's a two-stop. Now we're just going to run off in the distance. We're going to one-stop. Right? So McLaren kind of, they flunked that exam yesterday. They flunked that one.
They made it easier for Max than they should.
There's no logical reason even Zach Brown or their strategists could come and tell fans as to why they made that decision. Because he has none. We're not stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
They made it easier than it needed to be for Max. So, yeah.
Let's talk about... Yeah, so that's it on McLaren and their shenanigans. Let's go over to the red cars. Qualified terribly.
The worst qualifying session of the year so far, 11th and 12th.
But raced well.
Yeah. They had a good recovery, aided by the VSC and the safety car, but it's the same for everybody. It's the VSC. It's not like the VSC or safety car came up for them specifically, but Charles had a good start. Both Lewis and Charles had a good start, but Lewis had to check up because Charles moved over on him, and I think that checking up basically meant that he couldn't gain any more positions. He lost a position to Antonelli, so he dropped from 12th down to 13th. But Charles made some move on as well. Where did he got up to? He got up to 9th. If I'm not, he got up to the highest he got to was 9th. So he passed. Was it Hajar? Let me just check, and I'll tell you. I'm trying to remember who he passed. He passed Gasly. I know he passed Gasly because he did put up a nice move on Gasly. Gasly tried to defend that position when, let's be honest, he pretty much knew that position was gone. So he jumped Antonelli, and then he passed Hajar, and then he passed Gasly, moving up to 9th, and he was pretty much there until his Hurley stopped. Lewis again lost that position, and he was pretty much stuck in a DRS train for, oh god, that was a long time. And that's the problem with Imola. Once you get stuck in a DRS train, that's pretty much it. That's where you're gonna be for a lengthy period of time. And it's not like the Mercedes was a slouch. It was relatively quick, and it had good straight line speed. So that was pretty much the start where their race kind of pretty much plateaued out until the call for... Well, I didn't even see when Charles pit, because I believe he was the first person to pit at the end of lap 9, and I'm still trying to figure out why they pit him so early. Because if you pitted him on lap 9, that means he would have needed to do 54 laps on a set of hard tires. So you're pretty much signaling, this is going to be a 2-stop race for him. And my concern with that is Imola has one of the longest pit lanes, right? Which means the pit time lasts with pretty much like 30 seconds.
30 seconds, run about here, yeah.
Run about 30 seconds. So you don't want to do a 2-stop. Even though the Pirelli strategy thing said if you go medium, you can do medium for 12 laps, then you do 2 stops on the hard. You change from medium to hard, then second stop hard. But Charles pitted much earlier than the recommended amount of laps.
Yeah.
So that means he was definitely going to 2-stop, because there's no way he would have been able to do the whole entire race on that and keep pace, because it's very likely he would have been hanging on for dear life at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was his race. And he was a bit annoyed because he felt like, the safety car ruined VSC, and the safety car ruined, because when the VSC came out, it gave Lewis an opportunity to pit, and it's pit. Hold on a second, my phone just keep buzzing. To pit and come back out in front of him, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, what was I saying? Sorry, I got kind of distracted. So, yeah. So that allowed Lewis to pit and come back out in front of him, and hold his position. Charles fell down to, I believe, what? He pitted again, because he pitted also under the VSC, and he lost 2 positions to Stroll and Alonso. Right. Lewis, I don't even know what to say about their race, to be honest, because it was pretty much, I don't even know what to say. It was a bad weekend for Ferrari. Whilst the recovery to 4th and 6th looked good on the Sunday, it's still I felt it was a bad weekend because you expected more from them.
Mm-hmm.
And to go out in Q2 like the way they did again, it was a repeat of Miami. They were quicker on a used set of tires than they were on a brand new set. And it seems to be this year they have a car that in race trim it's relatively good, but in qualifying it's absolutely terrible. And that's a problem that they're going to have to fix, because you're putting yourself on the back foot on going into a Sunday where you have to basically you're recovering rather than trying to start near the front and move in that direction. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The whole Ferrari thing, to me, just, where I stand with that whole thing.
Just to quote, after the race, Lewis did say, he said, and I quote, I did think we would make an improvement this weekend, so with something I've fixed, and I think there's more to come. The setup was
again?
The car felt really mega, and the team did a fantastic job on strategy and pit stops. But basically he's saying that he said so it seems like he's saying that he figured out, he fixed something in the car, and there's more to come.
Well, I mean, did he not say that in where did he say that? Was it China? Did he not say the same thing in China? About there was the identity, after
Grand Prix.
Yeah, where they identified an issue, and it was what's causing the deficit, and once that gets fixed, etc., he should be fine. But then, since then his pace has been pretty much nowhere. But if you look at if you look at Miami and this weekend, he was much closer to Charles than in the previous 3 races.
Yeah.
3 races in. Yeah. So he was much closer to Charles in terms of performance. So, but they still have a lot of work to do on that car. I think it's fundamentally flawed, right? And so they just have to do their best. But in saying that, they made the right calls at the right time, which you have to give them credit for, because again, they don't normally do that. And Lewis, he made up positions because he had to pass. Where was he? He had to pass the likes of. He was in 7th. He was in 7th when the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, yeah, he was in 7th when the safety car came in, and he had to pass Russell, Albon, and Charles, and move up into 4th. And this is where we had a discussion yesterday about the safety car, right? And I think the safety car somewhat robbed him of an opportunity to actually be on the podium, because I think if the safety car had come in maybe 3 laps earlier, because I think it took from lap 46 to lap 53, so that's 7 laps. It took 7 laps to clear what's his name, Antonelli, breaking down. And I felt like if they could have cleared that car within 3 laps, Lewis probably would have been on the podium.
So
Because I think he finished about 2.5 behind Oscar.
So just to play devil's advocate, right? I guess we could also say the same, that if it wasn't for the first VSC, they wouldn't have been in contention. The same safety car that cost them the podium,
Mm-hmm.
remember, it was in the DRS train. So it was the VSC and the safety car who brought them back into contention. So it's like,
yeah, because Lewis' race was tracking to finish. Because if the race hadn't, that safety car hadn't come out, he was tracking to finish 4th anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was behind Albon. He was behind Albon in 5th, and he was catching Albon at a relatively decent pace because he was told by his engineer that he should catch Albon with 5 laps remaining. So he was basically tracking to finish 4th anyway. So and that was before the final safety car. And even with the VSC only lasted, what, I think 2 laps?
Which is why I said it. So his rightful position was 4th, right? If the safety car had cleared, it would have been like
I don't know if it would have. I don't know if his rightful position would, if you remove the VSC. If the race had went as planned with no VSC or safety car, I think he would have probably finished in the top 5.
Yeah.
Because I think because he was running so long, he would have then come out on the medium tires, which would have been a much better tires. Because when he pitted under the VSC, the safety car, at first he didn't really want to pit because he said, he didn't want to lose any positions. But Ricky said, look, you'd only lose like 3 positions, but you'd be on brand fresher tires compared to those who's going to jump you, because they didn't have any tires left. George didn't have any tires left. Who was it? George didn't have any tires left, and Albon, I believe, Albon was on new tires, actually, but he should have had the pace to jump Albon.
Yeah.
So, they made the right calls at the right time, and they got the results that the performance showed. This weekend, I think they were probably quicker than the Mercedes this weekend in race trim, obviously not in qualifying. I don't know what happened to the Mercedes. They were just pretty much slow. George was complaining about instability at the rear. He thinks something like a track rod was broken or something of the sort.
Yeah.
And Kimi had his issues. I mean, Kimi raced well for the first 14 laps prior to the VSC, kept Lewis behind him, and he looked comfortable doing it as well. But once he pitted, for some reason, it seems like his tires went off. He couldn't manage his tires, and that was pretty much that for him before the retirement. But going back to Ferrari, on Lewis's side, they did everything that they needed to do right. With Charles, there was some indecisiveness with him and his team, because he was asking them when they said to pit, and he was like, what tires do I have? And they say, yeah. He went, do we have any new softs? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I want the soft. And they're like, well, we don't think the soft can go to the end, because at that point in time, there was only 17 laps. And I think if they'd known how long the safety car was going to be out, then obviously they would have put him on the soft tires. But no one was supposed to know. They would have spent 7 laps again. I think that thing was inefficient. The marshals and cleaning the vehicle in Antonelli's car was very inefficient. He shouldn't have taken them 7 laps. And when they told Charles to box, he didn't. He changed his mind because he saw Lewis coming in, and he went, oh, I don't want to double stack because I'd lose a lot of time and positions. And I'm thinking, well, but you come back out on a brand new set of soft tires, which would have given you an advantage over those who would have jumped you. So by making that decision to not pit, it pretty much cost him, I think, the opportunity to probably even finish ahead of Lewis, or even 5th for that matter, because he had to give the position back for the whole incident with Albon, which I think he did force him off track. So there was no arguing in saying, why, when they told him to give the position, why he needed to. It was either that or you get a 5-second penalty. So either way, might as well just give it up. They probably should have told him to give it up much earlier, but then again, Albon would have driven away from him. He was even asking him to tell Lewis to stay in DRS, to give him DRS. And I'm thinking, Lewis is on brand new tires, mate. That means Lewis would have to be driving so slow to give you the DRS. And when you consider that the carrot in front of him dangling was Oscar on 20 lap old hard tires, why would you want him to do that in the first place? You're taking an opportunity away from him from finishing on the podium. So
I guess he wouldn't have known that Lewis was that close to Oscar, probably. That's the way.
Well, he should have known because it was a safety car. Remember, everybody was bunched up on the safety car. So, and Lewis only needed to pass. Who did Lewis pass when the safety car? He only needed to pass. No, he had to pass Albon. Well, he had to pass all three of them.
Yeah.
And the move that with Charles and Oscar and Albon pretty much kind of like let Lewis through, and that was it. Lewis drove a good race. I think he managed his race well. The communication between him and Ricky was decisive. It was, there was no so when he was having his conversation with Ricky about pitting under the safety car, he was like, how many positions am I going to lose? And Ricky said, like, I think he said something like 2, but you would be on brand new tires.
Sounds like they're coming in sync. Sounds like they're sinking now.
Yeah, that relationship is eventually it's gonna come good. Because Lewis did pit. Because when Lewis pitted, Lewis was ahead of Charles, Hadjar, Russell, and Sainz. And when he pitted, he lost positions he just lost the 2 positions.
Yeah. So
Which he basically quick. No, he didn't. No, Albon was already in front of him, so he didn't really lose a position to Albon. So because he came back out behind Albon, Charles, Albon, and Russell, but Albon was already in front of him anyway before, so he didn't really lose a position to him. But he just lost 2 to Charles and George, which he quickly dispatched George.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: Ferrari and Audi. Ferrari, how do you rate them on strategy this weekend?
Like I said, on Lewis's side of the garage, they called the strategies right. They made the right decisions at the right time. On Charles's side, maybe there needed to be a bit more decisive and clear. When they told Charles to box, they should have insisted that he box, but he made the decision not to, and then said, okay, I can't do it again, which they basically said, well, you can't do it again, because he would have lost more than the two whatever amount of positions he was going to lose if he had actually kind of like what's that we call it again, double stack. Because all he had to do was, when Lewis entered the pit lane, he didn't have to go as hard. He just kind of like needed to drop back maybe 1 or 2 seconds and give himself more of a gap. The pit stop was only going to be about 2.5 seconds. So if he gave himself maybe a 4-second, 5-second gap to Lewis, he probably wouldn't have lost any time. But, it is what it is.
Well,
but overall, the weekend for them, I think, if you're going to grade them the weekend, you probably give them a B-.
It's because they didn't stink up the place this weekend on strategy.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Usually Ferrari stink up the place.
Yeah, they didn't do a Miami.
Yeah, they showed improvement on strategy. All right, and so we're about to wrap. So championship prediction.
Okay, but before we do that, we probably just need to give a honorable mention to the Williams. You know what I mean? Again, Alex Albon doing his thing. He was comfortably running in the top 5. Look, didn't look out of place. At one point, he was in a podium position, but we all know that was never going to happen. Oscar caught him, passed him. So they finish in the points again. They finish where they finish. The double points finish. Albon finished. What's that? 5th. Sainz finish. What's that? 6th. Sainz finished 8th. So they've been somewhat of a surprise in the last 2 races, especially in qualifying. They've looked really, really quick. And Ferrari needs to address that as well, because they've all qualified them in the last 2 races. And I don't think that should be happening to Ferrari. But it's also a testament to what James Vowles has managed to do within that team to get them to turn around. The turnaround is actually brilliant, because Albon is on 40 points and Sainz is on 11. I think this is the best points all they've had, I think, going back to the pre-ground effects era, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'd have to double check. I didn't really check that. But shout out to Williams. They're quietly doing their thing. I think right now, if you're ranking the cars in terms of performance, it's them. It's McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and I think I'd put Williams as the 5th fastest car right now on pure pace. I think they're clearly much
better than
yeah.
They are.
They're clearly a better car than the V-Carb, the Aston again, who I think are an absolute disappointment. You can't, they brought a raft of upgrades this weekend, and okay, Alonso screaming on the radio, he's the effing unluckiest guy in the world. I don't think that's the case. I think you reap what you sow. This is all karma coming back to him. But you'd think you're not seeing any progress from Aston Martin.
Can you not do a podcast without showing your disdain for Alonso, bro?
No, it's not possible. That's like me. That's not me. Like me not breathing.
Right, and so
it's not possible.
What are championship predictions? Sound you put it here, so it seems like you're thinking about it.
Like, who you think is going to win the championship?
Honestly, I think. Who do I think is going to win the championship? All right, then there's caveat. It's not a straight up answer, to be honest. If McLaren get their act together and not do dumb stuff like they did yesterday, I'm going with Oscar.
Well, the question, so because it's more drivers than constructors. Because I think we're pretty much in agreement they're going to win the constructors championship.
Yeah, I'm talking about the driver.
I think they're going to.
To be honest, let's be honest. No fan care about constructors championship. True, fans care about drivers championship.
Yeah,
the team cares about constructors and sponsors and the brand itself. Yeah, fans care about drivers.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Lando. And the only reason why I'm saying Lando, because you guys are coming down on him so hard, and I think it is it justified.
Oh, so you're gonna say Lando just because of that? Are you really saying Lando because you think he can? Or are you just saying it because we're just harder than him?
I think he can. I've always maintained that I think he can win the championship because he has the car. He has the car and he has the talent to win the championship. He just needs to get his.
Why I say there's caveat to that is because my champion depends on a lot of things. And like I just mentioned, if McLaren get their act together and not do shit, crazy stuff like they did yesterday, I'm going with Oscar. If they keep doing stuff like that, I'm going with Max. So it's a tricky one for me.
So basically you're hedging your bet, but you can't hedge your bet. You have to pick one. You can't hedge your bet.
All right, I'm going to go with Oscar.
That's it. You can't.
No, I'm going with Oscar. And I'm also putting trust in McLaren to figure it out. To not do stuff like that. So I'm going with Oscar.
You just need to pick one because we don't want to hedge in no bet. We just need. I'm going Lando. You saying Oscar?
I'm going to Oscar, but I wouldn't be surprised if Max is champion. But I'm going to Oscar.
Of course, we're not going to be surprised because again, Max is Max Verstappen. You know, I mean,
not only that, I don't think it's just going to be because Max is Max. It's gonna if Max wins the championship, it means that McLaren effed up several times this season.
Okay, then cool.
Max is not going to. Max is not going to beat the McLaren. The both drivers in McLaren just off beating Max. McLaren is going to have to screw that up.
They're going to have to help him in some ways, and
exactly.
Like they did show signs of that yesterday.
Yeah, so
I'm looking. I'm going Lando. I know people are going to stone me with and whatever, but I'm going to go with Lando. I don't know. I just have this feeling that he's gonna figure it out, and once he figures it out, he's just gonna.
A quarter of the season already passed, so yeah.
Yeah, but there's still 3 quarters left. That's still more than a half. So
as you say, you have to go off what you see, and I'm seeing a quarter of the season pass, and he's still having the same issue. So, let's see. Last to rate the race.
Rate the race. What did we have as the ranking? Again. Dude, you need to write these down because I don't remember. But if I'm rating the race, oh god,
does it get on your podium so far to 7 races?
No, it's never. That's definitely not making the podium because what we have for the podium, if I'm not mistaken, we have Saudi Arabia, I believe, was top. It was Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Miami on the podium. So if I'm going to rank it, it's definitely better than Japan. It was a better race than Japan. Let's be honest. By far, Japan is the worst race we've had out of the 7 so far. So I think if I'm going to rate this race, I'll probably give it a 6 out of 10.
6
but no more than that. Yeah, but no more than that.
Podium.
No.
Yeah. Where do I go with this race? Doesn't make the podium for me either. I'll give it probably a 5. Initially, because I tweeted that this thing is boring. I was watching. I'm like, man, this is boring. And then obviously the VSC and the safety car. Yeah, so I'll give it a 5. It's not a race that I'm going to... Probably this is the last time I ever speak about this race. It's not something... Honestly, it's not a race that I'm going to be like, you remember this? No, it's not one of them ones. Right, so...
No, it's not memorable because I don't think there's anything that really happened in it that, would make it memorable.
Apart from the pass that Max pull on Piastri.
Yeah,
that's probably you're probably gonna see that clip more than you actually. You're gonna have to. If you see that clip again, you're gonna be like, which race was that again?
Yeah. So it wasn't earth shattering or anything like that. But yeah.
All right, well,
but before we close, let's do a quick preview of the next race upcoming, which is the Monaco Grand Prix, which is arguably the most boring race in F1's history. How you see that plays out? What's your predictions? Who you think's gonna win going into that race? Because I already think the Ferrari are gonna be in trouble in that race this weekend.
Monaco, to be honest, I'm just gonna go with McLaren just because they've got the best car. Oh, it's gonna go. The thing is with Monaco, if you was to say, Andre, you can hibernate and sleep out a whole race weekend, which one would it be? It would be Monaco.
Yeah.
I personally don't like the race. I just watch it because I love F1. I'm not watching the Monaco Grand Prix just because I don't even think it should be on the calendar. But hey, it's a rich guy's playground, so who am I?
Yeah, because the race basically comes down to Saturday qualifying. Wherever you qualify on Saturday, that's pretty much where you're going to finish because there's little to no, there's no overtaking, and what people are going to do is to prevent undercut or whatever. They're just going to drive slow as hell. until they're ready to do a pit stop, then they up the pace. So it's just that we pretty much know how the pattern of that race. So it's going to come down to qualifying. So, and like I said, I don't trust. We pretty much know the Ferrari is not really that great. It's not a good car. It lacks balance. It lacks grip. It lacks traction. It hits corners. It's rotation. It's slow and everything. And around Monaco, you don't want that because you have to race as close as hell to the barriers to get lap time. And in some ways, Monaco is more about drivers than it is somewhat car, but you still need a good car around here. And I think we could potentially be
more about it's more about a driver who can qualify, who could get a qualifying lap around here out of a decent enough car.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you might go to Monaco and the fastest car is not on pole.
Yeah, because the driver. I mean, yeah, we've seen that. We've seen that with
driver
with
for
the
the fastest car may not have the kahunas.
Not only that, maybe the car just doesn't work on that day. We saw it with Mercedes.
Works, but the close cars in Monaco, it's just the guy who can hang it out, right? You might find fastest cars down there. But as I said,
you'd need a good car for you to hang it out like that. You have to trust the car for you to really hang it out. So I think we might be in for a surprise this weekend, and I'm going to throw a name in the hat.
You throw it in?
George Russell.
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah.
I'm not mad.
I think George could surprise because his qualifying has been pretty, with the exception of Japan, his qualifying this year has been pretty epic.
I'm mad at that.
Really, really good.
And then Kimi showed useful exuberance.
I mean, if King... No, I mean, again, yeah. Let's see how Kimi does, because he's improving. I think pace wise he has pace. His issue is he needs to understand how to manage his tires, and I think again that will come with experience. It's only his 7th race in the sport, but I think this weekend George Russell could spring a surprise on everybody, and I fear for the Ferraris. Hey, man.
You know what I want?
Mm-hmm.
For this weekend to come and go. That's what I want. And I'm just being honest. I'm not even holding my punches. If you put a calendar in front of me and say make a decision, the race that you would erase, it would be the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yep.
Right. Because let's be honest. The Monaco Grand Prix is just where rich people go to play for the weekend. Yeah, it's nothing about racing.
It's who has the biggest yacht.
Yeah, let's
who was the biggest super yacht.
For me, watching the Monaco Grand Prix is just because I'll just watch it, but I'm not looking, hey, it's the Monaco Grand Prix. I honestly do not care.
Yeah, we're gonna be in for 70 plus laps of boredom, just processional racing. And I think Croft and Brundle were back this weekend because they weren't in commentary this weekend, and I tell you what, it's kind of refreshing to have hearing two different people. I like Anthony Davidson in commentary because he's far more, as a driver, he explains things somewhat better than Brundle.
The guy's not a dinosaur. When was the last time Brundle drove a come on, like Anthony
so
is current, and he's driven a lot of he's driven endurance cars. So if I'm gonna listen to someone, if I'm gonna listen to a current commentator in the F1 that's in F1, right?
It's
going to be him. It's going to be
because he explains.
It's going to be him. It's going to be Button, right? If Roscoe comes back around, right? Mm-hmm. And as bad as he didn't last long, even Julian Palmer. I don't want to hear nothing from Martin Brundle. Bro, you drove the last F1 car you drove. It was a manual transmission. I don't want to hear from you.
No, I don't think it was manual. It was manual.
No, I'm just taking liberties. I'm just saying that, bro. I don't want to hear from you with a gated gearbox F1 car, bro. I think it was refreshing hearing a different commentary. And like I said, with Ant, what I like with Ant is because he has more. Because I think he's still part of the Mercedes
test team. So he simulator work for Mercedes. So he's more current and he offers more. He explains things better. Put it that way. So you understand car balance, whatever. When your driver says this, he can actually explain it to the listeners far better than, and they make less mistakes than Crofty and all that. So yeah, but yeah, Monaco Grand Prix this weekend. It's going to be a bore fest. I fear for the Ferraris, genuinely do, because that's just a turbo car in every aspect of it, especially in qualifying. But my surprise is going to be George Russell wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
That's it. It's a wrap for this edition of the Grand Prix Project podcast. You want to say the name?
Nah, your turn, because I said at the beginning. I said at the beginning. Your turn. Try.
I'm not even gonna try. This has been the
Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
This has been the review of the first of the 2 Italian Grand Prix for 2025.
The Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
Okay, there you go. And once again, thank you for listening to the Grand Prix Project. Please go follow us on X. We're the GP Project Pod. We're on YouTube, the Grand Prix Project Podcast. Instagram, the Grand Prix Project Podcast. And we also have the website, which is www.thegrandprixproject.com. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere that you could consume podcasts. We're there. So please go follow, like, leave your comments. Tell us how biased we are. Tell us how you like us. Tell us how you dislike us.
And tell me to stop. And tell me to lay off Alonso.
Yeah, so
never gonna happen.
So yeah, it's a wrap for this episode of the Grand Prix Project podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Grand Prix Project podcast.